Welcome to ASR's IS Institute. This is our website asr.com. Up here we have started with the initiative of free mock tests. So for prelims 2017 we conducted the first mock test on 30th April, that is yesterday, and we got a very good response. It was an offline test in the institute also, plus the online test is also available. So this is freely available and it is live till your exam on 18th June. So you can go to this online test section, click up here, you come to this page where it calls you for student login. So here you put in your details. If you are a student, you will have your details. Even if you are not a student, you can sign up here. So this is the sign up page which comes up. Fill in your details, select course UPSC, and in this course category UPSC, and in the course you select this free initiative which we have. So these are free MCQ tests online. So it's not just the comprehensive test for prelims 2017, but all those students starting for prelims 2018 as well. 1st May 2017. This is the date from which you should seriously start preparing for current affairs. So this till your exam. So till April 2018, you will be preparing current affairs, a year's current affairs for prelims 2018. So the time to get serious even for 2018 has come. So in this free MCQ tests online initiative, you will upload daily current affairs tests. So daily 10 MCQs are uploaded on current affairs. So you can attempt those tests also. So generally even the previous day's test will be available next day. So you can go through the video. We'll be having daily current affairs videos. You can go through the video of the current affairs. Prepare for the notes. We provide the PDF also. We have also started with another initiative which is keywords. So the important words which are there in the news, which you should know about, the back and forth, up and down of it. So those keywords are important. So those will also be provided from 1st May onwards. So you prepare current affairs and the next day you can attempt these 10 MCQs. If you are doing well, means you are doing it, studying in the right direction, emphasizing on the right aspects. Or you will learn and score as you keep giving tests. So this is very important because MCQs and tests will test you whether you are preparing in the right direction or not. So please do emphasize on them, and this is a free initiative. Take advantage of it. So for 2018 batch students too, and for 2017 students as well, for all those who are attempting, this is an initiative. Second, we are also having a scholarship test. So this scholarship test was conducted on 30th June. So this is scholarship cum entrance test which was there. So the percentage of marks that you score in the scholarship will be the percentage of discount you will get. So as much as you score, a 10% score will also avail you a 10% discount. And for 30th April, the test which was conducted, the results are out. The top scorer has 44% marks, which is very great. So there are students in 30%, also a huge number of students. And we'll be having another scholarship cum entrance test which is scheduled for 14th May. So you can inquire. This is only offline. This is for the batch students. So this is the institute in Mumbai. So if you are in Mumbai, and you are going to take coaching in Mumbai, do take advantage of this opportunity as well. So this is a scholarship cum entrance test for UPSC GS batch 2018. Also, after signing up, you will actually have to be registered by the institute. So you can even call up and get a confirmation for your registration. This is the inquiry contact number. So first, once you are registered, you will get your login ID and the other details, and you can start attempting free tests as well. Right now, we are going to start with current affairs. So this is the current affairs videos which we will be uploading here. So this daily current affairs starting from May 2017 is very important, as I said, for the 2018 batch. So this is the current affairs for May 2018. So here we are going to upload news, editorials, and the question bank, and the PDF file comprising of everything. This new column which has been added is called the keywords column. So these keywords you can see here. These are the keywords for 1st of May. So this is what we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss about SARC satellite. We are going to discuss about VVPAT, Paris Climate Accord, India's INDCs for Paris Climate Accord, Bhitarkanika National Park, Buxa Tiger Reserve. So as these tiger reserves, national parks come up in news, you should know about them, even the animals which are prominent there, anything for which they are in news, and the states to which they belong to. Because these are asked quite often in UPSC, and you can't take a list of all these names and keep on doing a ratta, as we call it. You can't do rote learning for this. So what you need to do is that as and when they come in news, try remembering them. That is the best way to prepare for this. Then there's something about precision agriculture too in news today. So we'll discuss all these, even India-Pakistan agreements, the NSG, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, Kisan Credit Card, E-NAM. So everything will be discussed in detail. Real Estate Regulation and Development Act of 2016 has come into effect from 1st of May. So what is it all about? What are the key provisions of this? There's an article on this too. There is an article even on the editorial page on this too. So this is important. Then Smart Fence for LOC is being developed. What is it all about? Third, anti-missile system. So all these will be covered up in today's news. We'll look at them in detail. So this page, actually this keywords page, is very important for revision. So once you are done studying the news and you go through them, if you can remember and feel confident on each of these keywords aspect, great, you are good enough. If you don't, if you think that you are not clear with any of these keywords, go back to the news and study it in detail. So once you get confidence here, great, everyday's keywords will help you a lot. And this will be very good for last minute revision. So what we are seeing for prelims 2017, what we are doing at the last minute right now, we are going to provide this for 2018 batch from day 1 onwards. So please take advantage of this as well. Now coming to the crux of today's news. So the news items which we have picked up, again we pick up news only from the Hindu newspaper. Many a time students suggest that we want coverage from other newspapers also, we want coverage from PIB. So this is not required. What you need to do for civil services is minimum essential for everything. There's another video in which I've given the complete detail about how to prepare for civil services. So for civil services examination, the objective here is to make the exam simple, to make it simplified. Newspaper reading is not complicated, the news is not complicated, you don't need to overburden yourself. In UPSC, for every subject there should be at least, or minimum there should be 1 book, or 2 books maximum. You can't go ahead doing a PhD on every aspect, and same applies for current affairs too. If you try accumulating a lot, you will have a lot of information, it will be information overload too, there will be a lot of overlapping as well, plus the revision becomes difficult. And believe me, the Hindu coverage is more than sufficient. Even if there are 1 or 2 aspects which are left off and which you will not be knowing because you did not do other sources, it's worth leaving them rather than putting in double the time and doing much more efforts on your part. So that is what the objective here is. We'll do the Hindu thoroughly daily, and believe me, we'll come to know from prelims 2017 also the number of questions which you can attempt, because all important topics are of course covered at some point or the other. Everything gets covered. So now starting with the news items picked up are these 20. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, SARC satellite to be launched on May 5. So this is the South Asian satellite. So this is a satellite which India has proposed, and it will be taking the entire burden of launching this satellite and developing this satellite too. So it's about 35 crores the cost of launching this satellite, which has been borne by India. So this will be providing telecommunication and broadcasting applications, teleeducation, telemedicine, disaster management, D2H, direct to home, as well as VSAT technology through this. So this will be provided to all the SARC members who have joined in, except one, that is Pakistan. So this is regarding the SARC satellite, as it is called, or the South Asia satellite. The actual name of this satellite is GSAT-09. So that is what we have covered in the keyword here, SARC satellite GSAT-09. It has 12 Ku band transponders, and what is the purpose of this satellite? So that is covered here. So you can see it's mentioned here, it has 12 Ku band transponders. So this Ku band, what is it all about? We will see. And the engine which is being used is JSLV Mk2 launch vehicle. So this is the engine on which the satellite would be launched. So that is how it is. This is also having the indigenous cryogenic upper stage engine. So cryogenic is the technology which we use so that the fuel is compressed enough and we have more space to carry heavy satellites. This is the benefit of cryogenic technology too in space. So here you can see the details of the satellite given, plus the bands, the various bands which are there. So L band, S band, so these are the various frequencies which they represent, and they are used for various purposes. So as the frequency increases, the wavelength decreases, and as such the antennas which are required to gather the signal decrease, the size decreases. So more wavelength, more antenna size required, larger antennas required. If less wavelength, lesser antenna size. So more the frequency, smaller the antenna size. and these are the various bands as such of frequencies as mentioned. So here you should at least know Ku band is used here. So Ku band is generally used for satellite communication. So C band, X band, Ku band and Ka band. These are some of the primary important bands. So Ku band, C band you can see are used for satellite communication, and the better one is the Ku band, which is presently being used. X band and Ka band are used generally for military functions as well. So you can see it's primarily used by the military, and this is also for military aircrafts. Then next news item is Election Commission may change recounting rules. So we know about VVPAT. If you have just started preparing for civil services, then you should know what is VVPAT. Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. So this has been demanded because there have been questions that EVMs are tempered. So now what Election Commission has called for is asking the government to provide resources so that VVPAT machines can be brought in. This was also the Supreme Court order that VVPAT machines should be there for elections. So the Supreme Court actually wanted them for 2014 elections, but we did not have them in place. So now for 2019 elections, the resources have been allotted, the fund has been allotted by the central government, and VVPAT machines would be used. So what is this? Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail means along with the EVM, this machine will also be attached. So when you press a button for the candidate whom you are voting, a print will come, which can be verified by the voter. And this printout actually cannot be taken out. It will be rolled into the machine only. You will be able to look at it for a few seconds. So you can verify that what vote you pressed is the word which is registered. So this is the purpose. And later when an auditing is required, a re-evaluation is required, recounting of votes is required, then VVPAT machines can be used for that. So now Election Commission will change the recounting rules too. It will not be done on a random basis, but entire counting will be done because the VVPAT is available now. So this is about this news. The third news item is India didn't act on Paris Pact, Trump. So this is the Paris Climate Agreement which has been put into effect. It has come into effect too. USA has also ratified it. India has also ratified it. Even China has ratified it. So the important countries have already ratified it. But now the thing is that after the presidential elections in US President Donald Trump is considering opting out of Paris Agreement. So this, he says that this decision will be taken in a week or two. So let's see what will be the USA's decision. He's also saying that USA will be contributing more than other countries, and particularly his named three countries, China, Russia and India. They are contributing nothing under the treaty is his allegation. But then we have each country is required to provide INDCs, intended nationally determined contributions, and these were provided by India as well. And after ratification, these INDCs become binding on you. So now they are not intended, they are nationally determined contributions which you have to adhere. So this is the entire provision under the Paris Climate Agreement too. The purpose of it is to keep warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. This is one purpose. The financing which will be provided, you can see that rich countries must provide $100 billion from 2020 as a floor. This minimum should be required to be provided by the developed countries. There is differentiation, means the countries will contribute as per their capacity. Emission objectives are also mentioned. So emission objectives are that the greenhouse gases emissions should peak as soon as possible and then we should go down. So that is there. And of course, there is a review mechanism. So in 2023, the first world review will take place of the INDCs which have been provided by various countries, and every 5 years then review would also take place. So this is a very important provision here. So Paris Agreement is actually the successor to the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol did not succeed because USA did not join it. Canada later opted out of it. And now Barack Obama regime, they had signed. Former president had signed the Paris Agreement, and now US President-elect is considering opting out. And this is regarding India's INDCs which have been submitted. So we signed it on 1st October 2015. So this you can see the INDCs, so not on 1st actually, it's on 2nd October. So it was on Gandhi Jayanti that we decided we will adhere to the INDCs. So you can see what are the intended nationally determined contributions of India. So 3 major aspects are there you should know about. So first is that we want to reduce emission intensity by 33 to 35% of the GDP, and this will be achieved by 2030. and how this reduction is compared to the 2005 level of emissions. But as per 2005 levels, 33 to 35% will reduce it. And second is achieve about 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuels based on energy resources. So this we want to achieve by 2030 again. So this will be with the help of transfer of technology and low-cost international finance, including from Green Climate Fund. So Green Climate Fund is also being initiated for assisting the developing countries. So if we are getting funding, if we are getting transfer of technology, if we are keeping it dependent on them, then we will make sure that 40% of electric power installed will be from non-fossil fuel, means from renewable sources. And third important one is to create additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. So that is what we wish to achieve by 2030, the three aspects. So this will be carbon sink, because carbon sink is the forests. So the trees serve as carbon sinks, they absorb carbon dioxide. So that is why this is also what we need to achieve. And others are subjective, not quantitative but qualitative terms, like to better adapt to climate change, to mobilize domestic and new and additional funds also for this purpose. So you can see how we are trying to achieve is also listed out here. You can go through this also. All three prominent ones are mentioned, number 1, number 2, number 3. So if there is a subjective question which is required, you can use this one image and get all the points. Then next is 2 suspected cattle thieves lynched in Assam's Nagaon. So this Nagaon district of Assam saw 2 men who were suspected of stealing cattle killed by the locals. So they were lynched to death actually. This is the case. In Assam, cattle slaughter is allowed through a certification. So this is the case, otherwise it is banned in Assam. So this incident has come up here. Next is no tourist entry into Orissa National Park. So this is Bhitarkanika National Park in Orissa. Here restrictions have been imposed on entry of tourists because presently it's the breeding season of the crocodile. So Bhitarkanika National Park is known for its estuarine crocodiles. So estuary, the water body when it enters into river water as such, when it joins into the sea, the estuary which is formed here on the eastern coast of India. So these estuarine crocodiles which live here, they are breeding. So that is why Bhitarkanika National Park has ended through this. So here again 3 aspects which you should know, as we have put in the keywords also. Bhitarkanika National Park, where is it? In Orissa. And what is it known for? Estuarine crocodiles. Or just the term crocodiles is also fine. The next is 6 tigers to be relocated to Buxa Tiger Reserve. So this is Buxa Tiger Reserve in northern West Bengal, means towards the north. And here we are having tigers not seen for long now. Though the forest officials here claim that 3 tigers are there, but they have not been observed as such, spotted as such. So now 6 tigers have been approved for relocation from Assam into Buxa Tiger Reserve. Also, if you are a student who has been following current affairs, you must be knowing, we have already discussed it, Assam has the maximum tiger density. So tiger density is maximum in Assam as such. So here we are seeing that 6 tigers have been planned to be shifted here in Buxa Tiger Reserve. So this is approved by National Tiger Conservation Authority. So density, you should understand, density is not in terms of number of tigers, but in terms of tigers with respect to the size, the region size. Land area as such. That is the case. The next is drops of water better than the gush. So this is regarding precision agriculture. So precision agriculture is a technology in which agrarian water dependence is also reduced. So you have to put in the right input in the right amount and at the right time in the right place. So this is with precision it is being done. So technologies are generally employed for precision agriculture. Even remote sensing, satellite navigation systems, GIS systems are employed to ensure sensors are used. These drones are also used to know what is required and where particularly what aspects are required. So even drip irrigation is part of precision agriculture. You are putting in the right input in the right amount. So subsurface irrigation is something which is being tested by this University of Agricultural Science in Bengal. So that is also mentioned. Then next is Turkey sees role in Kashmir talks. So Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is on a visit to India, and before him Cyprus head has also visited India. So Cyprus president had actually asked for India's assistance because in Cyprus we see that this is Cyprus. It's an island nation in the Mediterranean Sea. You can see Turkey lies here. This is Athens. This is Greece. So European continent is up here. This is the West Asia here. You can see this is Africa. So this is the Mediterranean Sea. Cyprus is an island nation here. And in 1974, Turkey has occupied this much part of Cyprus. So this is Turkish Cypriot and this is called Greek Cypriot. So the Cyprus president wants to reunite the two regions. This is also UN is holding the ceasefire here. So what is happening now is that India is being asked for assistance by Cyprus to reunite the two parts of Cyprus. But then Cyprus is also stated depending on whether it is possible for the country or not. And when Cyprus president visited, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi stated that it is a historical stand that Cyprus should be united and we adhere to that. So of course this has antagonized Turkey, and the Turkish president, when he was on a visit now, he has stated that Turkey can play a key role in Kashmir issue. So of course this is a retaliation now. So what they say is that Turkey can ensure that Kashmir dispute is having a lasting solution. But India's stand is that this is a bilateral dispute and there is no need for any third party intervention. So that is what we have adhered to. Because in 1947 when Pakistan invaded India into Jammu and Kashmir, what we did was, on the advice of Lord Mountbatten, we went ahead and referred the matter to United Nations, and we were disheartened because the Western powers then, because it was the period of Cold War, Western powers sided with Pakistan, and rather than making it go back, the ceasefire was tried to be held on that till the point where they had invaded, and we saw that in 1951 this Karachi agreement was signed between India and Pakistan, and this ceasefire line was held to be supervised by observers, and these were the observers, UN Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan. So this was through the Karachi agreement. So after that, Tashkent Declaration has also come because we had another India-Pakistan war in 1965. So this Tashkent agreement was also to bring in peace along the LOC. So this was in 1966, though LOC was not the term which had been formalized. It was after the India-Pakistan war of 1971 when Bangladesh was also formed. And after that we had the Shimla agreement between India and Pakistan in 1972, which defined the LOC in Kashmir. So this LOC still prevails, and UNMOGIP, which was under the Karachi agreement, still holds. But India says that there is no role, no mandate for UNGOIP because it was under the Karachi agreement. But after that we have signed many other agreements. So presently it's the Shimla agreement which supersedes Karachi agreement, and we have defined the LOC. So now there is no need for UNMOGIP and we do not go ahead and recognize it. But Pakistan still keeps on complaining about LOC violations to UNMOGIP. So this is the status presently. So this is the background. So now another point, so this is one point which Turkey is raising, that it can intervene and solve the Kashmir dispute, though we don't want any third party intervention, not even UN intervention. And second thing it is saying is about NSG. So you should know about Nuclear Suppliers Group 2. We are trying to get membership into NSG. China is bringing hindrance in our membership too, because it is saying that if India becomes a member, then Pakistan should also become a member, because both are non-signatories to NPT, and China wants India to sign NPT, so we are not signing that. NPT is Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So we are not signing that, but still China says then in that case both, Pakistan has also not signed, so both should be treated at the same level. Though we completely disagree with that. Two countries cannot be at the same level, because Pakistan, there are allegations that it has resulted in nuclear proliferation to various countries, including Iran, on which UN and also European powers had put sanctions, and now Iran nuclear deal has been finalized, after which it has given up. Also to North Korea too, it is suspected that it was through Pakistan. The Pakistan nuclear scientist, who is called father of nuclear science, nuclear technology in Pakistan, Mr. A.Q. Khan, he is said, alleged to have passed on nuclear technology to these countries as well. So that's why we have a clean non-proliferation record, but Pakistan, there are allegations of proliferation, means spreading of nuclear technology, right? So of course two countries cannot be at the same level, but China insists on this, and now Turkey is also saying the same thing, that New Delhi's bid for energy should be tied up with that of Pakistan. So both should be there. So that's what we are seeing, that how Turkey's stands have changed after we spoke in favor of surplus. So this is there. Also, NSG membership, another thing you should know is that NSG membership can be acquired by India only if all 48 nations which are member to NSG agree to it. So here decisions come by consensus, means each and every member should agree. And China is a member. As long as China does not agree to India becoming a member, India cannot get a membership. And why are we seeking the membership and what are the details? This you can go through it out here. So this is nuclear suppliers groups. Of course, nuclear technology trade can take place if we are a member. So it requires this even with for trade with US also. The nuclear deal has been signed, but to put into effect, we need to be a member of NSG. Though we have got special considerations from NSG because of US intervention. And another was MTCR, which we have already acquired membership to, Missile Technology Control Regime. There are two other nuclear groups which we tried to acquire membership to, which is Wassenaar Group and Wassenaar Arrangement and Australia Group. So these are 4 nuclear agreements to which we want membership. One we have already acquired, MTCR. NSG we are trying, and the other 2 still remain. Then the next news item is EC for 5-year ban on those bribing voters. So this is regarding Election Commission writing to the Law Ministry that there should be changes done to Representation of People's Act so that Election Commission can get the power to disqualify candidates for 5 years if they are charge sheeted for bribing. So if they bribe voters, because it's a case which took place in the news in RK Nagar Assembly bypolls. So this was the bypoll in Tamil Nadu because after Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha's death, this seat became empty. So it was seen that the voters were tried to be bribed in innovative ways by the candidates who were standing for elections, and finally Election Commission had to cancel these elections indefinitely to this RK Nagar seat. Now what is happening is that Election Commission is saying that they have the power to countermand an election when muscle power is used. But now they are seeing that money power is used in many cases, so it is asking the government to provide it power to countermand election, even if muscle power is used. Term countermand means cancel elections. So it's not that Election Commission does not have powers. Election Commission is a constitutional body and it has got powers under Article 324 of the Constitution. But then these powers are specifically given to it by the government. So it says that rather than using the constitutional power, if the law provides for it, it would be easier because we don't want to use constitutional powers too frequently. So this is also a demand being made. Next is Niti Aayog looks at museums to grow tourism. So this is part of the draft 3-year action plan. So this also we have been seeing that Niti Aayog Governing Council meet took place. So for those who are starting off, you should know that Niti Aayog Governing Council comprises of the Niti Aayog members, Prime Minister is the chairman, and all state chief ministers and union territory lieutenant governors are represented here. So this is the Niti Aayog Governing Council. You should also know that Niti Aayog has replaced the Planning Commission. The last 5-year plan ended on 31st March 2017. And now we'll have no more 5-year plans, but what Niti Aayog will give is a draft 3-year action plan. There is a 15-year long-term vision, 7-year medium-term strategy, and 3-year draft, a 3-year action plan. So this draft has been prepared presently and it is being negotiated, discussed with the states, and then it will be finalized. So the draft's provisions are coming in news quite often. So one of them now which has come presently in news is regarding tourism. So Niti Aayog in this draft 3-year action plan is talking about promoting tourism because it will result in employment generation also, and also the growth of bringing in forex as such, foreign exchange also, because there will be international tourists also coming. So it's emphasizing on it, and it's particularly asking for a regulatory body in tourism. So there should be a national authority. Presently what we have is a commission, an expert committee. So an expert body which only gives recommendations, but what it wants is an overarching body with a broader mandate in which all the museums in the country come under. So this is a suggestion given here. Also it is saying that there should be 5 exclusive tourism zones around beaches, because it is seen that in various countries around the world, the beaches established as prominent tourism hotspots. So similarly we should also have exclusive tourism zones. Then also another point which it has made is that India should promote tourism specifically in these richer Asian countries like China, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore and South Korea, because here the people are also having the money and they can easily be attracted as tourists in India. So prospects are very high than this thing. So it's an economic, of course, body, and it is going to give you an action plan to improve the economy as such. So these are the suggestions coming forward. Next is farm suicides get attention of Apex Court. So this is regarding the case which had come to the Supreme Court on farmer suicides in Gujarat, and it expanded its mandate and asked for it to be a general petition for all. So you can see this petition has been expanded to consider farmer suicides across the country. It asked the centre to give its action plan and how would it take steps to end this tragedy of farmer suicides, and the petition response has come from the Agriculture Ministry, but then this affidavit which it has submitted, it is seen that it says that the implementation as such comes from the state, so it's the responsibility of individual states to have actual ground level implementation. This is what it states. So reasons are the same: frequent crop failure, vagaries of monsoon, absence of assured water supply, attacks by pests or diseases on the crops, deaths taken by farmers, and also social causes like marriages, etc., where they need a huge amount of resources and money to spend. This result in farmer suicides. So this is there. The steps which the centre has taken, it has emphasized on the crop insurance schemes also which have been brought in, and specifically the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is emphasized on. Even RBI had allowed states and district level banks to take lenient view on rescheduling of loans if crop loss has occurred of 33% or more. So this is also a step taken to ensure that farmers are not overburdened. Then Kisan Credit Card Scheme and E-NAM scheme has also been mentioned in the affidavit. So these three we can look at in detail. So here you can see the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So what you should know about this, there have been insurance schemes for agriculture, but then this scheme which has been launched, this is going to cover all aspects of loss. So if it's due to post-harvest losses or other losses too, it will be taken care of in this. That was not there in earlier insurance schemes. This is there. And another, it removes the cap on premium. So the amount of premium which has to be paid has been removed. So cap has been removed in the sense it can go too high, so it will be market determined. So this aspect is also there. And farmers' contribution to premium will reduce significantly. The government's contribution also comes. So this is the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. The Kisan Credit Card Scheme, which is an old scheme, this was initiated by RBI and NABARD in 1998-99. So this provides credit. So credit, adequate and timely credit can be acquired by the farmer. So this is the credit card given. So this is a scheme for you. Then E-NAM. So this is E-National Agriculture Market. So this is online agriculture market. So the farmers can register themselves at the mandi, they can become licensed commissioned agents, and they can give their crops for quality check in the laboratories, and after the quality check is done and price fixed, this bid as such is loaded on the website. Online bidding can take place. Buyers from all over the country can bid on it, and then the challan is generated and the farmer is bid. So he can get competitive prices because it's bidding and open. So everything is open, market determined. In E-NAM also, then market comes into play. So this, even intermediaries will be out, and it is believed that the farmers will get the best price. This is E-NAM, which has been initiated, and it has been expanded slowly, bringing in more agricultural markets into this boom. Next news item is Real Estate Act will come into force today. So this is the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act. So this will come into force from May 1, that is today, and all ongoing and new housing projects will have to register with the regulatory authorities within 3 months. So there is a regulatory authority, Real Estate Regulatory Authority, which has to be established by states. So this is actually to be done by the states. That is there. The major provisions are mentioned here. You can see all new projects are to be registered. All projects to be sold only on the basis of carpet area. So this is also important, because now we hear, when you go to buy houses, you hear about various terminologies. Built up area, carpet area, super built up area. So what is this? Carpet area means simple, the area where you put the carpet in the house. So this will be only the area which is available. What is built up area? Built up area includes also the thickness of the walls, the ducts, the balconies, all this is included. that is called built up area. So that will be of course more than carpet area. And super built up area. So this is 25% more than built up area generally. So this includes common areas too. So part of lobby, staircase, lift, playground and other facilities provided like clubhouse etc. are also added up into the built up area. So that is called super built up area. So here the law clearly states that the projects are to be sold only on the basis of carpet area. So this is there. So of course it is benefiting the consumers, the buyers of houses. And then licenses of reselling agents can be withdrawn in case of complaint. So this power is there. Home buyers can complain directly to the regulator and the complaint has to be resolved within 60 days. And then of course after regulatory authority there is an appellate body too. So real estate appellate tribunals will also be formed. So this has to be formed in each state. So within 3 months of it coming into force, this should be done. So we are expecting that the states would take action on this and the act would come into effect in real terms. Then another is that developer has a liability for 5 years to repair structural defects. So within 5 years if any structural defect takes place, the liability is on the developer. Developer has to deposit 70% of the money into the project's escrow account. So there will be a separate account. So whatever money is being taken from the buyers when the project is developing, so 70% of this has to be in this escrow account. Means it cannot be diverted and can be used for other purposes or other projects. So this ensuring that this money is available for this particular project only and it will be put into effect and see its conclusion. This is there. The developer has to ensure that all points mentioned in advertisement are true. So these are also there mentioned in this act. So you can see. Also advance amount to be collected is maximum 10%. So prior to inking agreement you cannot have more than this amount collected. So much of details have been put in to bring this into effect. This act mandates that state government should establish real estate regulatory authority within a year from 1st May 2016. So this was 1st May 2017 and then 3 months have been given to start day-to-day functioning. But this still has not been done. So rules have not been brought in by all states. So we expect that this comes into effect as soon as possible. Then appellate tribunals will also be. So this is regarding the act. Next is Army set to install smart fence along LOC. So this is the smart fence, means sensors which will be put in. So this is the LOC line of control between India and Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir. The other side is POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So around 700 meters from the LOC we have these barbed wires kind of. This is called AIOS, Anti-Infiltration Obstacle System. So these wirings is there, which has been provided presently, but we see that during the snow this gets affected and this has to be repaired almost after every season. And also infiltrators get used to this fence and they easily cross over. So now what we are planning to have is a smart fence. So smart fence is sensors would be put in place, so regular and surveillance can be done off the border at all times. So this will be provided to the complete stretch of around 700 kilometers. So this will be completed in phases. So this is regarding the smart fence. Next is US has committed to payment for THAAD. So this THAAD is Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. So this is a THAAD anti-missile system. So this has been promised to be installed in South Korea by USA, for which USA would make the payment. It is having a cost of around $1 billion. And this will be installed in South Korea to protect it from any attack which comes from North Korea. So the two are neighbors, South Korea and North Korea, and South Korea is an ally of US. So earlier, few days back, it is President Donald Trump who stated that South Korea should pay for this THAAD. So now South Korea has stated, it has confirmed from US administration, no, the entire cost will be borne by US. So of course this is being protested against by China also, because they feel that THAAD is not targeting North Korea but targeting China, because it will be controlled by USA. So USA is getting its anti-missile system in Asia up here. So this is the significance of this. You should know about THAAD. So you can see this is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. So the radar would be placed here. So if any incoming threat comes in, the launcher, of course there are radars, so they will give the details, and this launcher would launch this anti-missile, and this would be by contact, by thermal power actually, this kinetic energy as such, this incoming missile would be destroyed. So this is the interceptor missile which will eliminate the incoming missile. The next is polio case numbers drop in Pakistan, Afghanistan. So here you should know that polio has 3 types, type 1, 2, 3, and out of these type 2 has actually been eliminated from around more than 150 countries, around 156 countries a year ago, including India, has said that we have eliminated polio. So the trivalent vaccine which was used, means for all 3 strains, type 1, 2, 3, has now been shifted to bivalent. So we are using only type 1 and type 3 strains polio vaccines. So these oral polio vaccines which are used, the news has come of polio which is vaccine derived. So in some cases it happens so that the vaccine which is used for immunization of the child, so this live weakened strain which is there, this strain and the rare case instances it turns virulent and causes vaccine associated polio. So such cases have also come. So this is called VDP, vaccine derived polio virus. So this is there for type 2, because type 1 and type 3 are still prevalent, but type 2 has been eliminated. So this case has been detected specifically in Nigeria in 2017. So this is another news. So what is happening is Pakistan and Afghanistan are still having wild type polio virus of type 1 and type 3. So these are still being reported, though they have reduced to only 8 cases. Now 8 wild type polio viruses cases reported in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So these 2 countries are also trying to bring down type 2 polio virus, eliminate it. So still vaccine derived polio virus type 2 is still a looming threat, and the SAGE, Strategic Advisory Group of Experts of World Health Organization, which was established in 1999, is suggesting that first this vaccine derived polio virus has to be tackled. Type 2 has to be tackled, then type 1 and type 3 elimination can be emphasized now. So this is the status of polio present. So we are targeting various polio strains one at a time. So type 2 you can see it is declared eliminated, but then polio derived cases are coming forth now. Vaccine derived cases are coming forth now. Next is India-US to hold talks in May to boost trade ties. So these talks are going to happen later, but some things, aspects which have come forth in news here is what we are going to discuss is also on technology. So we are going to discuss Internet of Things and cloud computing issues too. So policy and legal aspects on these will be discussed. So what are these 2 terminologies you should know, and the concerns which are there. So another is about Glorious India Trade Expo, which will be held in New Jersey, USA. And another 2 concerns which are there is one on visas, so H1B visa restrictions which have been brought in by USA, and second is on intellectual property rights. So USA comes up with this special 301 report. So this special 301 report is on trade and intellectual property rights related issues which are affecting USA, and USA has put India continuously on priority watch list. It says that there are not sufficient improvements and the intellectual property rights regime in India is not strong enough to safeguard the patents which should be given to US companies. So that is what their concern is. So this you should know, that what is special 301 report of USA. This is Internet of Things. Now what is Internet of Things? So Internet of Things is actually that everything is connected through the internet today. So consumers are having lighting system, security system, everything connected through the internet. The retail sector connected through the internet, even online services which are presently available, even for medical aspects, the wearable devices which are there, which provide information on real-time basis. So everything that is connected to the internet, the whole aspect, interconnectivity which is there, is called Internet of Things. So this is about this. And another is cloud computing. So cloud computing is that you don't need to have resources on every computer. So the prominent example is that email system. So you don't have email saved on your computer. Emails are saved on the server of the email services which you are using, be it Google, Yahoo or others. So this is called cloud computing, that through the internet you are able to access services. This virtualization which is happening. So this virtualization means computing functions and technology implementation is separated from the physical hardware. You need not have the physical hardware in your area or in your place where you are using it, in your system. So you need not have that, but it can be provided to you through the internet. So that is called virtualizing. So virtualization is one aspect, is cloud computing. So cloud computing is virtualization of computer programs through internet connection. So this you can see an example given of, instead of running the email program on your computer, you log in through your email account and remotely you can access things. So there is a storage capacity also provided to you. You have the storage too, and you have the program also which you are using, which you don't have on your computer, but through the internet you are using it. So there are various service models which emerged because of cloud computing are SaaS, PaaS and IaaS. So this is software as a service. So you can be provided software, operating system, even network as such. So what happens is like whatever you have ERP software, so they are provided through as a service to you. This is also an open domain in which India has huge potential. So this is an economic sector now, a new emerging sector in which India is also flourishing. So software as a service is sold. So you don't need to have everything with you. You are provided that service. So you don't have to, even if you have a company, you did not build it in your company, but you can hire it. So that is software as a service provided. Platform as a service provided. This is also possible. Even remotely, even printing can be done. So those aspects are also there. That is also cloud computing. Infrastructure as a service provided. So this is service models here. Next is Center for More PSB mergers, means public sector's banks should be merged, because recently we saw 5 associate banks of SBI were merged with SBI. Also Bhartiya Mahila Bank was merged. So now the government wants that more and more banks in the public sector should be merged together so that they are strengthened and can collectively become stronger. The NPA issue can be better resolved. Even RBI Governor Mr. Urjit Patel has suggested on the same lines. But these merger proposals, one aspect is that they will require clearance from Competition Commission of India. So these are the various mergers and acquisitions which have taken place over the period of time, and this you can see is recent Bhartiya Mahila Bank and 5 associate banks which were merged. So Bhartiya Mahila Bank was a bank launched in 2013 for women empowerment. So here it does not mean that only women can have accounts, but it basically means money can be taken in from all, but they will provide credit, loan, more so and majorly to women. So this was the Bhartiya Mahila Bank of 2013, but now it has been merged with SBI. And this is regarding the Competition Commission of India. So this has replaced the MRTP Act, Competition Act of 2002, replaced Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Policies Act of 1969. So Competition Act was enacted and Competition Commission of India was established in 2003 only. But then there were still amendments required, legal challenges, and later in 2007 when the amendment was also passed, the Competition Commission of India became effective. So since 2009 it is fully constitutional and has come into force. So it's functioning. So here it has much more powers than MRTP. So MRTP had very little financial administrative autonomy. It has complete autonomy. It can also penalize for offences, and we have come in news across various cases in which Competition Commission of India has penalized various organizations for anti-competitive practices. Like here MRTP had no penalties, it could not impose penalties for offences. This is scrapped now. This Competition Act which is in place. Next is some way to go before the finish. So this is regarding the special freight train operation scheme. So freight means for goods. So railways is used for movement of passengers also and movement of goods as well. So here the Railway Ministry has come up with a new plan to allow private companies to run freight trains from their own private terminals. So this is the scheme which will be launched. So means they will of course be using the railway tracks only, and the operations of the trains will also be controlled by the railways. But they will have their own private terminals and these freight trains will be around. So what are the issues involved is important here. Of course it will benefit large corporates. So these companies, private companies with heavy volume of cargo, they will have their own private terminals and they can have them run for long distances. It would facilitate multimodal infrastructure development too, because multimodal means various modes of transport used in one infrastructure system. So like railways is used, and then last mile connectivity may be given by roadways or inland waterways. So various modes of transport together. So this will also be facilitated. But then the issues involved are that the infrastructure which is being used is of the railways, and there are issues in the signaling system, the tracks need maintenance, so these concerns remain. Also some routes are very congested like Delhi-Mumbai route. So how will that be taken care of? Because both passenger trains and freight trains, they use the same tracks. So this is also there. Then land acquisition for these private terminals which will be established, that also is a challenge. How will that be put into effect is a question. And precedence is generally given to passenger trains, and how will this work. Economic viability for these companies, private companies which would be taking up these private terminals is also a question, because the previous schemes which were there, like container terminal operator scheme, they could not earn through this, because even railways is known to have ad hoc changes done to the tariff plans, also charges imposed at quite high. Then railways does not remain competitive, and rather roadways are preferred by these companies for their consignments to be transported. Also, there is no guarantee for timely delivery of the consignments to which is given generally. So that is also a concern. Also, another aspect which is raised is regarding the rakes, the railway rakes which will be used. The design specification has not been provided, so there is no clarity. So then later, if there are any bureaucratic hassles coming and clearance is not given, then it will become difficult to use these private terminals. So the clarity is needed on this aspect too, and there should be a credible dispute resolution mechanism if there are disputes, because the operator is also railways and the regulator is also railways. So the private companies would become helpless. But the new proposed Rail Development Authority, once it is accepted and put into effect, then this aspect can be resolved. Also, we are having the dedicated freight corridors which will be put into effect. It is expected by 2019. So then whether they would be allowed to run their rakes through this dedicated freight corridor is also not known. This clarity is also required, because if now they are getting this scheme, then whether it is applicable for this or not is a question. One important point which is raised regarding railways, this example given is of JNPT, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. So this is the largest container port in India. And here we see that less than 1/3 of the total container volumes are going through railways. So this, though they are coming, a large part of its cargo is coming from long distances, like from the north-west hinterland of India, interiors of India. So then, where long distance means competitive advantage for railways. Still, railways is not preferred and roadways is preferred. So this is a huge question. So that is why railways has to take advantage, the competitive advantage which it has. This is the point. The next news item is what you need to know about infrastructure investment trusts. So India's first infrastructure investment trust, IRB InvIT, has been opened for subscription. So that is why this is in news. So these are similar to mutual funds. So how you invest in mutual funds? So then the mutual fund invests in the stocks. So similarly, InvITs, you will be investing in InvITs, and they also have to be there present on registered as trusts with SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. So that would be there. They would also be listed. But then what happens is that this investment would be used for infrastructure projects. So that is the idea, that various infrastructure projects, roadways, power, etc. This will provide funding from large number of investors who can directly invest in infrastructure projects through this SPV, a trust which has been formed. So this is the whole aspect. It is going to generate more revenue. But then this is not open for individual investors, small-time investors. It's only for not retail investors, but for large-scale investment. So minimum application size for InvIT unit is 10 lakh rupees. So this is the case. And of course, there have been tax exemptions also given. So dividend income is tax exempt. Short-term capital gains is tax, but long-term capital gains are tax exempt in this case. So first InvIT has been put into effect now. It has been opened for subscription. So this is the news. So similarly, the investment risks, as it is mentioned, is just like in mutual funds. You are investing in a particular mutual fund, then mutual fund will decide in which stocks it wants to invest. So same way, InvITs, you are investing in InvITs, and this trust, investment infrastructure trust, will decide that in which infrastructure project it wants to invest. That will be the decision of the trust. That's how you will now have no control over investments, and the exits, if any, are made by the InvITs. That is the case. Then the last news item is China, Europe planning to build Moon Village. So now Chinese and European space agencies have come together for a collaboration, and they are going to build first ever Moon Village. So this could be used as a launching pad. So from the moon you can have launch done to deep sea missions like even to Mars. Then also it can be used for space tourism, a moon village as such. And also it can be used for lunar mining, because there are various minerals present on the moon's surface. So that can also be exploited. So this is the plan which has been brought forth now of a moon village. So these are the news items. Thank you.